Hi, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Something polygroup. Yes, okay, you guys can hear me. Cool. It's, for some reason the mic on my headphones is not working, but my Yeti mic is. So if that's working, that's we'll keep it like that. Okay. Is that better? Can you guys still hear some kind of fan or anything like that? Can you guys also hear the music? You guys are gonna have to excuse me because I'm gonna be coughing a bit here and there. Caught a cold the last couple days. But if everybody could confirm that we're good, I think Facebook we're good. Let's see. Can somebody else confirm the other streaming services? Okay, awesome. All right. Let's see. So this is working. Let me copy my Gumroad on here. Yeah, Ricola. I'm taking some Ricola here. I just it's not quite working as good as it should. Cool. And we'll get started now. So my name is Miguel Guerrero. Thanks for joining the stream. If you guys want to check out some of my work, this is my website, some of the professional projects I've been involved in, commercials, films, all kinds of different things. So feel free to come here and check it out. Check out the demo reel. Yeah, I'm trying to get ready for this stream. I'm pretty motivated after going to DesignerCon yesterday. Here's some of the products that I make that I kind of will show you guys how to make your own, so you guys can make your own creations and make 3D prints. So feel free to check those out as well. Yeah, I was able to go to DesignerCon yesterday, and it was really, really cool. Let me just change the volume on this thing. It was pretty awesome. I highly recommend you guys go for some motivation if you guys are in LA. Some of the awesome things that I was able to pick up, my friend Eric Sosa gave me one of these guys, this little kaiju baby things that you guys should definitely think about picking up. They're really awesome. They're really cute, but you know, kind of throw back to all the like classic monsters and giant kaijus and stuff. Another thing I picked up was this guy, this articulated figure. It's really cool. You know, just a few of the things that I picked up that kind of motivate me to, you know, make my own stuff. Let's see. Cool. So if you guys are in LA, check it out. It's one more. Today's the last day. If you guys want to see any of my presentations or any other streams that I did in the past, you guys could check out the Pixelogic presenters. And somewhere down here, it will have some of my streams. Let's see. There we are. So here you can check out what time I stream, what are the dates that I'll be streaming, some of the fun work that I do for fun, just for at home, and then some of the past streams that we did, some helmets and some of the development of some Halloween props and this current project. Want to check out my art station? Feel free to check that out too. I need to update that hopefully soon. And if you guys want to check, want to grab my UI, feel free to grab it from here. That will give you all my shaders, my presets, all that stuff. Some of the brushes that I have in there as well. So if you guys want to follow along, yeah, we can do that. Let's see. And again, sorry for all the coughing. Yeah, I did, man. I got sick like Tuesday night, and then it just like sped up to 100% Wednesday and Thursday, and then I'm taking a lot of medicine, so it's kind of helping. But yeah, that cold, the LA cold. So this is where we left off last time, creating this this little guy. That's kind of like a cool little project that I wanted to continue on. You know, within the 2 hours we got pretty far, kind of blocking him out. I think he looks okay, but last night I was really motivated, so I came to look for after DCon, to DesignerCon. I came to get some more references to prepare for today. Just kind of like, oh man, I'm motivated to do more. So I also did a little bit of work. You guys can see here. I'll switch it back and forth. Some of the proportion changes that I did. You know, let's change the shader. So if you ever have this, you know, poly painted and you want to turn it off instead of going to each piece and clicking Alt and colorize and turn it off, it's kind of annoying to do it all at, you know, that way you can come here to the side, to the subtool, and click on hold shift and click on the little brush, and that will turn everything off for you, so you don't have to individually do it, which is pretty cool. But if you wanted to do individual pieces, you can. Like, let's say I wanted to change the mask just by itself, then you could Alt and then colorize on and off if you just wanted to do one piece. But in this case, I kind of want to show you all so that we can see it without the color. This is the first time using 2020, so it's kind of interesting. Some of these tools that they added that are really cool, like the silhouette little panel there. That's kind of, see, as I'm rotating, you kind of see that what's going on with that. And if that's too small, if you hold Control and click in there, anywhere in the white or anywhere in the center, you can scale up and down that little viewport, which I think is pretty useful. If, like, right now we're playing with silhouette, right, and we can see what's working. Like that's kind of working. It seems pretty decent. And give you a better idea, so you can modify, and it's all live, so you can modify it here and see it update right there, right away. But sometimes it might be too big, so you might want to shrink it back down to normal size. But some of the changes that I made last night, right? Coming back and looking at some of the insects, he felt like he was okay without any clothing, without any armor. So I started noticing, like, oh, he feels kind of stubby. Something felt like his neck wasn't long enough anymore. Now that we started adding armor and a lot of the stuff that he has, like for his hat or his neck protector, it felt a little, you know, like he's not quite like the warrior I would expect him to be. So I kind of started playing around with changing some of the proportions. And also, like, then I started playing with the eyes, but I had to stop myself not to continue because obviously I wanted to do most of it in the stream. But I felt like this was a good change. Let me turn off this Z-rig. But yeah, you could definitely see the silhouettes there. Like he feels like he's maybe like he just feels stubby. Like he doesn't feel like he can move much. So these are some of the changes that I feel will make him feel like elongating some of his limbs. Kind of felt like it was a good thing, so I kind of started playing around with that. And also now his silhouette feels much more, a little more insect-like, like more like a leaper. Like he can leap, like jump really high, or kind of attack you with, you know, much more strength. But it's cool to have that little window there to kind of show me the silhouette, because you see here, I can see that maybe he needs a little more in the 3/4 view, a little more on the thighs, you know, because we're just blocking this stuff out, so this is all changeable. Or like his wrists are looking maybe a little too thin, because, you know, even human wrists, you think they're real thin, but they're really not that thin. Yeah, and also some other references that I collected. You guys want to see that too, of some of the things that I'm thinking of doing, or you guys don't care about the references? Let's see. But one thing that I started playing around with, because I kind of want to base this guy a little bit on the stag beetle. That's kind of like the reference. So I started changing this eye thing. Before, he just had like big eyes, which look cool, look, you know, bug-like. But this I feel like really changes him to feel like a insect instead of less human, you know. You can sculpt with the mouse, but I would highly recommend the tablet if you can, a Wacom tablet preferably, or even one of those X Pen tablets. I'm using this in Cintiq now, but for work, most of the time I'm always using just a regular tablet, like a medium. So I would highly recommend. Okay, show it. So you do want to see the reference. Cool. So here's some of the reference that I collected. Because one thing that I want to do. So here's kind of the stag beetle, right? Kind of looking at the plating and what kind of details I'm going to do for the trim, and also what kind of details he should have as an insect, right? Because I don't want it to feel like it's man-made. So that's one of the things that we're going to break today, kind of get away from the traditional samurai way of things looking and kind of start implementing some of this more organic looking stuff, especially like some of this areas of rest, right, where you have like a big piece that's well, obviously this is like one giant piece, but then it's broken down into primary like details, like the main just shape, and then breaking it up to the secondaries and tertiaries, like where you just had a little bit of dots, and then you start adding more details. But they all kind of blend. Even the horn, you see, if you look at the horn, it starts to like taper and become less and less detailed, but at the base it's pretty nice. And then also like maybe the introduction of some kind of fur system in between, kind of like padding. Another thing that I want to do too is I wanted to make a spider creature, like he just fought he just ripped the head off of a big spider. So I kind of started collecting references for that, like how would that look if I just made a spider head, and also looking at different types of spiders, kind of fangs, different designs. So it's not just a simple you just took a spider, you just did that. It's like I want to add some more creativity to it, you know. Also, here's some of the other references I've been looking at for like samurai, like color schemes, and also like patterns or feeling of what I want. Like I really kind of want to play with this white and gold. Here's some more stuff, some more insects, or some stuff to be inspired by, you know, like kind of insect-like characters. Also like body types, like so these are more for this is more for the color scheme here. This is more for the body type, kind of slender but still strong type of physique. So more stuff for also maybe colors. So it's kind of a variation of inspiration of different things, you know, like maybe the creature he's gonna fight is maybe something more like this, or even just like what is the overall color scheme of these guys? A little bit of red with dark browns, you know. One that's pretty interesting is let's see, where is it at? It's like the limbs. Like, how am I going to start breaking out the limbs so they don't feel so human, but they still feel strained, like they have strength. So here's some references that I'm thinking of using for that type of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I'm looking at, you know, to see how to make it feel more insect-like than human, because I feel like he's starting getting a little too human-like. So we're gonna kind of start playing around with changing that, just from the limbs and some of that stuff. Let me see if I can find that stag beetle thing I was telling you guys about with the eye. If you have any questions, feel free to post them as well. There we go. This is the one I was thinking about, the eye. So you see the way this is what gave me the idea of like, oh, how can I implement some of that into breaking up the eye? Because I just felt like too fly looking, too basic, you know, just like one giant eye. Was it an alien or is he an actual part insect? So this is like the idea of like, oh, okay, I could maybe break up the eye, something like this, and start playing around with some more insect-like kind of design ideas. So we'll continue that today, and that's kind of where we're at here. But also then, how do you make that look like it's actually blended? Like here, it's starting to look too organic. So we're gonna start breaking that up. Let me just make sure I have the chat open so I can see if you guys have any questions. How's everybody's Sunday going so far? Anybody go to DesignerCon today? And here also we can start playing around with turning back the colors, because sometimes also we'll play around with the colors today to see if that's a route we might want to take to when we paint the real thing. But as you can see, it helps a lot to see the whole thing with color, because you see a lot of the breakup where if you didn't place it, it starts to all look like it's all part of the skin when you really want these armor pieces to be separate. But it's nice to have the silhouette. You see here, I really like the way that the chin's coming out, but it feels like maybe he needs a little more forehead coming out, because he starts to get a little kind of old. It feels like his like he doesn't have teeth, and his lower jaw is kind of protruding out like a chameleon. But let's fix some of this stuff so that we can move on. Let's see, let's do a little bit of H polish to flatten some of this stuff down. The other thing too is that we can dynamesh it, because so I'm trying to get rid of some of these kinks here that I just had. Because smoothing it sometimes doesn't just get rid of them. See how there's this little kinks that flatten doesn't get rid of, even up here. So let's add some more character to this guy. Well, we could always make an alien later. Maybe next one we'll make an alien. I haven't made an alien in ages. I did start sketching one on my on the iPad, but a few weeks ago, but I never took it any further. Maybe I could export that out and start working on it here. Have you guys been experimenting with some of the new features? Did I blend this in together because I dynameshed it? Yeah, I think I did. It's all good. It's okay, we'll just redo that mask later. I'll just blend it back into his face. So I wanted to be able to have that option to put his mask on and off. Yeah, there's a lot of features. So take it at start experimenting with them. Just take one every day or one every couple of days and like really try it out. It might be useful to your workflow, it might not, but it's worth checking out. One that I'm pretty excited about is the transfer detail one, the one with the new brushes. Let's see, where are they called? Oh, well, Move Infinite is really nice. We'll probably use that today to show you guys a little bit of that. But there's the other one with the extractor brushes. I think that's really good for 3D scans or any 3D work. If you make some pores and then you want to put those back in somewhere else, I think that's one of the ones that's like really cool. Not so much for this type of work, but more for scan cleanup or fine detailing to just kind of like clone stamp away. Yeah, there's so many programs to learn, right? There's like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, Mari, all these programs are coming up with updates that have really cool features. So how do you keep up? It's just take it one step at a time, and that would probably like help a lot. At least that's kind of what I try to do. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So here I'm also moving up in resolution because I'm noticing I'm starting to get a little bit of low resness. And here, since we're kind of removed the mask, I'm gonna start smoothing this out. So it starts to feel like part of his face again. One thing I like using a lot for blending this type of stuff is clay and just hitting it like a little bit. You see how it's starting to blend in those bits. Like this is continuing down here, kind of part of his nasolabial fold, if he were to have one. Kind of blending some of that stuff off, and then sometimes some of this stuff just breaks, so you just redynamish it, and there you go. So now we lost this mask, but no big deal, because all we did was just extract it earlier, so it's not a big problem. Let's see. For production, it depends. If I'm doing like concept work, yeah, I'll use Zremesh and any tools to make this work. But at the end, I'll retopologize manually instead of using like the retopologize here. But if it's like a rock or something like that, I'll definitely just use this and then even do the UVs in ZBrush. Yeah, the Extractor Brush is pretty cool. I can't wait to use it. Yeah, well, so one thing that I messed up earlier, right? I combined the mask of his face and his head, but I didn't have groups on. So what that did, it merged the mask onto his face, and instead of keeping it two separate meshes. But that's just because I forgot to press groups. Not a big deal. It's so easy to redo, especially at this stage. I'm not like doing anything too crazy. And we're just designing it right now anyway, so it's all part of it. So like I was saying, I was thinking this guy needs a little more forehead. So if you look at that silhouette, it's pretty nice to be able to see how much I'm pushing here. Like, yeah, obviously you can obviously see it here, but with the silhouette, it's much much cleaner to see. Like, okay, that's working, and it's reading. How's it reading from a distance? You know. So now it feels like maybe a little bit of this brow part has to come out. So here feels like he's still wearing a mask, so let's blend this part together. And first I hit it with the smooth, and if that's not enough, then that's when I start switching back to clay to fill in like this gap. And then we'll start implementing a little more of that stag beetle. So one thing that I wanted to do is paint with these horns. Like one thing I did last night was give them a little bit of an angle, but like instead of them just being round, start rounding them off. Or I mean, start giving them a little more of direction, you know, like because he's not exactly a beetle, he's not exactly, he could be whatever he wants, so I can start playing around with blending in. See, like I have this button here to show me the mask, like it stays masked, but I can see it without. I want to make sure that breaks up into a second form, right? So I'm hitting it with the inflate a little bit because I want it to feel like it's growing from the same horn, but maybe slightly different. And here I see a kink, so I can actually clean that kink up right now. Right? There it goes, so invert, and then push the other way, so it feels like maybe it's like a horn that has a splinter of 3 or 2. So it's a little bit of smoothing and then refining the shape. So now it feels more broken up. So I'll probably do the same thing for this main guy. You know, this is kind of like the main stag beetle horn. But now it's starting to feel a little weak, so let's add a little more, I guess a little more bulk to him. But it's good to see this at the silhouette form, because then you start seeing, oh, okay, like that's giving it more form. Also, do we actually want to even keep that stuff? Like maybe we remove it, but we'll see. But now we can make adjustments based on that. But I kind of like that piece, so let's turn that back on. I think that's this guy. So this is where we can start playing around with some of this stuff. Like, how is this design element like how is he keeping this on, and why is he keeping that on? Also, like, why is it just glued on top? I think that's one of the big things that I'm thinking about. Like, is that to make him look like he's more, like, from a distance, more powerful? Because if he didn't have that, see, he looks kind of like a bull and kind of boring. But if you look at that in the silhouette, it makes him look a little more scary, because you're like, why does he have like 5 horns? Even though I guess 3 of them are actually functional for whatever, for battle, where the other ones are just decorations. But it breaks that silhouette down to switch tools. But I really like that idea of the eyes. But let's break that edge too, because Round brush. So one thing I want to do too is instead of just making like cuts, you see how I kind of broke this down into like a secondary shape down here. So there's like a little bit of a breakup. That's one thing that's like super important to do when you're designing this type of stuff. Like not making everything linear or perfectly straight, because nothing in real life is pretty straight. You see, like I'm adding a little bit of curvature here and then bulking this section up as well. But you kind of have to do it from all angles. But sometimes you start with those, you know, like here, these are like perfectly, but then we start implementing them there. And then also like maybe they start off together here, but then they split off. Or even just breaking one edge into two. I think that's pretty important. At least from a lot of the classes and the experiments that I've been playing around with, you know, talking from like Simon Lee to George Duchal's, like Alias Arrest, and that type of stuff, you know, like making sure you don't have parallels. That's a huge one. Here, how's this going? Are you guys enjoying watching this stuff, or? So here's where we can start breaking the main horn up too, because I feel like the main horn could be broken up. And sometimes you can go pretty big on your brush and just kind of break that form up. You see, kind of connected it to that. And even then, I wanted to do kind of similar technique than what we did on the previous thing. It's giving this a little more bulk, so it feels like it's actually protruding out a little bit, but just a tiny bit, you know, you don't have to go too crazy. So that way it feels like there's a hierarchy on all this stuff. Just lurking. Okay, no, it's all good. If you have questions, feel free to ask, design-wise or technical-wise or whatever, you know. This is, we're just having fun with ZBrush and trying to make this guy look cool. I feel like he's looking cool already, but let's see if we can add a mask. Let's see what kind of mask these samurais usually have. It was this one that I was looking at, this red. I really like this, so I might mimic some of that, but maybe just the color, not the design. But let's give this guy a mask. Again, sorry for the coughing. I know it could probably be annoying, and if it is, let me know. I could just kind of mute my mic until I talk. But let's give this guy his mask, because I think that was helping him a lot. Will I retop it? Probably so, because at this point he's like pretty dense and nasty. It's like not, I guess, not easy for posing, because that's one thing I wanted to think about too, is the posing. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys was also I did a Z-rig, right? Let me just isolate it. I started playing around with just made a quick rig or a quick Z-sphere rig, and I kind of wanted to how dare I be sick, I know. It was nice to see the silhouette, but this is something we can use to actually move all these pieces around, which is pretty cool as well. Once we of course block out a few more things, I wanted to think of poses, because one thing I wanted him to have was like I was telling you guys, I want him to be like he just killed a giant spider like creature. I use it for sketching. So a lot of the stuff that I do for the iPad, I use it for sketching ideas, like while I'm watching TV or hanging out with my kids, and then from there I export them and bring them in here. But sometimes you could take it pretty far on the iPad, but it was always nice to bring it here for like refinement, and that type of stuff. So I would highly recommend you guys do that. Or also another thing that I use that I tried to implement in production is sculpting in VR. I know it's kind of hard. It's very different than sculpting here, but you know, it's fun. It's a different way of creating. So this is like the scale that I'm thinking, maybe a little smaller for the head of the spider creature. Maybe he's like a size of a what can he be? Because this is kind of the scale, right? That's like the human scale on this guy. Let's turn his colors off. So I wanted this guy to be maybe the size of like a bison, or maybe a slightly bigger because he's a spider, obviously. But that's kind of the scale that I want him. Like he just cut his head off and he's like resting. So one of the reference that I was looking at also was how do I want to pose this guy, right? So I was looking at this guy, like I kind of like his pose, and I could figure out that if this guy just killed this giant spider, he could be sitting on top of him, kind of sitting like this, like, oh, what should I do? Like, should I cut his eyeball and eat it, or should I, oh man, I just killed this dude finally. Like it took forever. Maybe he lost a limb as well, or he's like holding the part of his little limb that he lost during the fight, or holding a piece of his armor. So this is kind of the pose I was thinking of doing for him. So I kind of wanted to block that out and see like, well, how big does the head have to be for this to work, you know? Let's see. It says, can you show the brush functions of ZModeler? I don't even, I don't use ZModeler at all. Like, I think I use it for like really basic stuff. But I tend to do things, my workflow is a little different since I use Maya a lot. I tend to export things out there and just retopologize them. Or if I need to do a Zremesh, like let's say we want to have a clean version of the head now, right? Actually, let me save this first because things crash. And the last thing we need is a crash after we did like an hour's worth of work. Yeah, I heard the Quest is really nice. I have the Oculus S, or yeah, whatever the latest one that came out that still plugs into the computer. So you don't like it, huh? It takes a while to get used to, man. To be honest, like the first time I tried it, I was like, this is like sculpting with shaving cream, and I really didn't like it. But then the more I got used to it, and also seeing some of the results that some of the artists have been doing, like Geo Napkio, like it's pretty amazing. And once you start going back and approaching it more seriously, like you actually dig it. And if you make a workflow where you could quickly block out something like in 20-30 minutes there, and then export it to ZBrush and then put more detail, then that could be cool. So this guy, right? So one of the things that I do, like let's say I want to clean this up and have a clean mesh that has resolutions. And the picnic bitch, yeah, exactly. You could do whatever. Like it could be that, but for me, I was thinking like I want to make this into a print. So I was thinking like, well, how can I make this a cool print with like a cool creature and then this guy on top of him, But yeah, it could be something like that. Like he just killed the guy and he's sharpening his knife or something, Yeah. But let's see. So one thing I do first is duplicate the object, right? And I make sure it's all good. We'll fuse this to the body later, but right now you can see the topology is pretty. It's great for sculpting and adding detail, but like not for like reposing or adding final detail, right? So one thing I like doing is Zremesh, and the new Zremesh is like really cool. Like the algorithm is much nicer, but also if you hold I think Control or Shift on the Zremesh, it'll give you a different algorithm in case you don't like that topology the way it came out. Okay, so you do like medium. That's cool. The next one I'm trying out is Gravity Sketch. Now that they have updated like a lot more things on it, that's the next one I'm thinking of giving that a try. And implement it with ZBrush, of course, always. So this takes a second. So now you can see much cleaner topology. Now a lot of the reinforcement of actually some of the stuff we did for the eyes is there. And this is actually more usable for posing, which is pretty cool, But what we can do? If you guys want to see some of that posing stuff, I could do a quick Zremesh on a lot of these pieces, and then we could try to repose this guy so we can see how that works. So, but before that, let's go back to this guy and then hide everything else except for those two guys. You'll notice that they're kind of matching, but the detail could, maybe there's a level of detail that's not there. You see how it still looks, you know, like low res. So we could do, if you hide everything else and just keep those two pieces, you could subdivide this guy and then do a project. Let me see, where is that? It's I'm so used to having this on my shelf. It's weird, when I brought in my new interface to 2020, some of my buttons kind of disappear. Well, that's good to know, because I just brought it in. I didn't even think about doing anything else. But let's see, subtool. This other thing that's kind of strange is that I'm not sure if you guys have noticed it. The colors change. My colors weren't like this. So if you guys are having this issue, one thing you can do is go up here to color interface. And if you click on that, that changes it. See how that's making it a little more, now it looks more correct, except the color scheme is kind of weird, but you keep clicking on that until get it right. See, now it's no longer white or light color like it was earlier, except for that top menu, which is kind of weird still, but whatever. So projection, right? So we could do project all, and sure, keep the poly paint or whatever, and then here's projecting the detail, right? And then you subdivide it one more time. Project all. Oh, I guess here's my button. It just shrunk down. So now we have a cleaner topology with those two meshes, and now they match. You see how they're almost like on top of each other, like they almost look like they're good. Let's see. Yeah. Well, posing could be pretty difficult if you make it difficult, or you could also make it pretty simple or just see the idea, right? So if you guys want to see how I do it with the Z-Rig, we can go through that. It'll just take me a couple minutes to kind of Zremesh some of these guys, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, I don't know why why it gets so bright. It must be like see, like now this one's working. So sometimes you have to pick an interface and then from there save it, and that should save it. Oh, thanks. You guys are digging it. But yeah, let's do that. So now that we projected that detail, we can get rid of this guy, and then let's Zremesh a lot of these guys just to and also let's see, what is this guy? Okay, a lot of the armor. So we'll Zremesh it and pretend we projected it, but we won't project everything because obviously it's kind of boring, and I don't want to bore you guys with that. But let's Zremesh that guy. Let me move on to the next one. So here I'm just pressing, let's zoom out. Well, let's unhide everything actually so you can see what we're doing. There we go. So the way we'll see how we're doing everything, since everything is viewable now, then we'll go to solo and then press the down arrow, and that changes to a next subtool, right? So from there now we can go to the Zremesher and do that. Go to the next one, Zremesher. I don't know what that is. This is where it'd be nice to keep everything organized, but here is Zremesh the body. But this is kind of just to show you. I want to show you guys how you guys can pose things if you guys wanted to, even at this stage, or if you start prepping early, like you know, we can. So here I'm just going through each piece. We'll save this as well, just in case it crashes, so we don't want to do this again. And usually this is pretty quick, so it's not a big deal. So do you guys like that silhouette look and that other head to tell you which direction you're looking at? I think it's cool. I'll probably make my own little icon, you know, or that head's okay, but I think I want to do like a little skull or something, replace it. No, it's kind of similar to the pizza boxes, but it's using the Z-rig to actually use those as bones, which is it's a pretty cool idea. It's not like the best way to do it, but it's a easier way in case you have a symmetrical model and you actually want to use like rotations of bones and stuff like that. Let's see. Come on, come on. Hopefully I only have another 5 pieces or so that you can make this doable. Because I tried doing this last night with the mesh I had, the Dynamesh, and everything was too heavy. And it didn't really like that, so it kind of like just tore the model apart. Yeah, it's finicky, man. That's one thing that's the reason I don't use it all the time. And sometimes like if the things have the same name, it'll tend to crash or it'll tend to freak out and then explode or forget to move one piece. And I think that's like a big problem. So these are going pretty quick. Because what it does, it kind of like combines everything into one piece and you lose a lot of the functionality. So that guy I don't care about. That's our rig, and that's our spider guy. We don't care about that guy. Okay. So I think we got them all. Well, at least all the pieces that we need for the body, right? Let's see, 10. Yeah, one thing that I noticed that was strange too is that the legs flipped. The legs on that skeleton flipped. I don't know why, but that's probably a glitch. But let's try it out. Obviously, we don't need to have this guy and this guy visible. And then we go to Z plugins. Let's see, where is it at? Transposed Master. You want to use the rig, right? You want to store the rig, so you want to go to the layer where you have your Z-sphere rig, right? And then go to T-pose. Oh, sorry, I need to go one. Gotta select at least one piece of the actual geometry I want to deform. T-pose. And now it's going through the whole process of kind of combining everything into one piece. So if you look at even your outliner here, now there's only one piece with a Z-rig. And now we can paste that Z-rig that we used earlier. So it takes a second to kind of copy and paste. But you see how the legs are broken? I don't know what that's all about, but we could fix it now. So let's try to take care of that now. It's just kind of annoying, and also maybe turn. But yeah, that's one thing that I noticed. It was kind of strange from yesterday that it just kind of broke. So here I just had the 2 toes, right? And this is not something I use all the time, but it's another alternative. So I just kind of wanted to show it so you guys, in case you guys were wondering, like, how do you do that? And then from here, one thing that's important that you guys will notice is if I have stuff that's sticking out like that, it's going to be rigged or bind to the closest item, the closest bone or closest C-sphere that's there. So if you wanted to have more control over like this rib stuff, like you might want to put like extra little arms or whatever sticking out that are closer. But for this, we're just going to show this because I kind of want to show you the technique of how that works, right? So now that everything's lined up, there's a menu down here called rigging. So what you want to do now is bind, right? So that basically is going to attach that skeleton to that mesh. And because it's a low res mesh, that was your mesh, it's nice and clean, so it's easier to do. So now that that's going on, well, let's turn it off to show you guys something, right? So if we want it to rotate, see right now if I rotate the arms, nothing happens, right? It's not attached. So we do the bind. So now see how everything's coming together with it. It's not the fastest because we could probably optimize the geo even more because it likes using the low res geo. And also at this point we could probably break symmetry, right? Because we probably want to turn his body a little bit. And this is where you could click on the bone and start rotating. So you guys can see that it maybe not the fastest, but in a pinch it could probably get you pretty far instead of you having to do. But you see how this is not moving, this area that it should be moving. That's because I probably could have put a fake bone that's going to the neck part, and that would have kind of brought that with it. See, this stuff breaks too, but it's not a big deal, right? Because we're just blocking out like an idea. So of course some stuff would break pretty bad, but you know, like this stuff there. But if I was more careful, I could have done something a little different, right? But this is just to kind of show you guys what I'm like, what's potential you guys can do. So then from there, let's say you like it and it's all good. Now you go back here, T-pose, and that's going to go through each piece again and bake each one of those tools out at that position. The only thing that happens is that you lose that rig, you know. So, but you can start at least playing around with some posing. Yeah, that would be nice. Even if they just had it like a little influence capsule, right? Like there is in Maya and other softwares. So so you could do that, you know, generally, or you could just do the pizza box thing where you kind of move things in mass. So it depends on what you want. But here we can start seeing the silhouette. Like what would he look like if he was walking and pointing and looking at a certain direction, you know? But if you look at all the geo, still maybe slightly too high. Like this could be actually more optimized, kind of like this stuff. But here, because we're not finished, I'm not going to work on this pose yet. I just kind of wanted to show you guys the technique so that you guys are aware of what you can do with Z rigs. So we're going back to our other mesh that we're working on. But yeah, I think these are the kind of tools we're going to be talking about, you know, just kind of giving you guys tips about this stuff, like some old techniques, because I feel like that's a pretty old way of doing things, you know. But one thing you can do too is also just do the skin that way and not do the armor, so that you don't deform the armor. You could just go and move the armor with the transpose tool, you know, and then you move it to the shoulder, and that's it. See what else. Let's continue working on this guy. But yeah, that technique is a little old, but I feel like it's still useful in some cases. So here I'm trying to add some secondary forms to kind of break some of that stuff up, you know. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Well, it depends, right? What I mean by old way is like I hardly know anybody that uses that Z-rig stuff, but I think it's a good idea to like that pose of him sitting down, right? I could probably block that out and be like, oh, it's gonna look cool, or you know what, his legs need to be longer for him to look more powerful. Then I could do a quick version of that, just like I did maybe where I even combine everything and just do a lower resolution of it, just to see like the silhouette. That's what I meant by old way, not so much like there's like a right way or bad way to do this. Like there's so many ways in ZBrush that's what makes ZBrush so powerful, right? That there's so many ways of doing this stuff. So if you don't get it one way or you don't like one way, change it up. Try a different technique. Yeah, old people talk. I know, I'm so old. But sometimes you forget, you know, like they started revamping that whole Zizu thing that's in here. And that's kind of using that same technique, you know, to block out a quick model, and then from there you just kind of either pose it, change some proportions, and then use it as a Dynamesh. So it's kind of like reviving that whole way of thinking, you know. It's just other alternatives, other tools in your toolbox. So like, look at the crazy amount of animals there is here. Even a turkey. Maybe next week or maybe this week I'll do a turkey based on this, you know, like a weird hybrid turkey that's like maybe it's turning into a monster or something crazy. So let's go with that. Where are you? Project, extract. See, that's kind of weird. Like that menu, like that bottom thing, just kind of turns dark. I couldn't even see the extract. That's a little too thick. So let's change that up to a 0.00025. See what that does. That's not enough now. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that works. Yeah, hopefully this stuff is not too boring to you. Some of this stuff is not like the most exciting stuff to do, you know, in the stream also. Like sometimes it's not the most like wowing factor, but it's also a pretty informative stuff that you can use for other things or different way of approaching a problem. And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of attack, you know, to show you guys like, well, you could do it this way, you could do it that way. It's up to you, but at the end, you have more tools now that you can use in your workflow. What do you guys think of this guy? Is it starting to look a little more powerful? Let's change that. And of course, like a lot of characters and that type of stuff, there's always has to be strong points and weak points, right? So in this place, like if we add something else that connects here, maybe we're exposing his kind of brain cavity to kind of be the weak point if you wanted to actually kill him. Like maybe you can't shoot him in the face, or if you shoot him one eye, you disable one eye but you don't kill him. Oh, thanks, man, appreciate it. So here, like maybe we're starting to play around with like, if you were to shoot an arrow at him from a distance, you might be able to just kill him by shooting him straight in the brain there, you know? Yeah, he's kind of like I want to say less alien and more bug-like, but maybe he is turning into some hybrid like that, you know? Maybe some thickness on his upper arms. Yeah, his upper arms started getting a little too thin. Let's see, these guys are still all separated. Yeah. So let's bulk those up a little bit more. Yeah, I had to make his shoulders a little broader because he was starting to feel like he was scrunched up and too skinny. Yeah, if you have any screen grabs, you could post them on here, and I could post them, and we could talk about them as well, if you're comfortable doing that. I know some people are very shy about their work. So here I'm just kind of using the Inflate Brush, and because I have all these all separate, I could still control, you know, how they kind of come into the model. Like, see, like now it's looking good, but now maybe I shifted that stuff. So here's why we use Move Topological, because now I could just move the bicep part, you know, and connect it in there, and then maybe bring some of this shoulder part down, you know, bulk up the back because it's starting to get too thin. And we also obviously haven't worked on the back, so that's another thing we have to kind of start playing around with. And here's like latissimus dorsi. Trying to get that back down, and this thing should be, you know, assuming we're kind of basing this on a little bit of human anatomy. You know, start cutting this guy down because that's kind of where he doesn't go. Then you have some more muscles here. I by no means are an anatomist, but I have studied anatomy, so I know enough to, you know, make some of this stuff work, or at least know how it's supposed to connect. But obviously here we're just trying to get this to work, and we could always change the anatomy, just like we did with the proportions earlier, where I showed you what I did last night. Yes, to normal. Yeah, I really like I prefer it that way because I'm always pushing along the normal, so it's kind of important. But for me, like, this chest plate was working before, not so much anymore. So let's see what we can do. Okay, it's its own tool, so maybe we could just get rid of it or hide it for now. See, like, his chest is tearing apart now, but that's fine because that's just his chest, you know, it's underneath all this, but we're going to bulk that up as well, even though you might never see it. And that's what I like about this brush, that and then we could give that a little more bulk because maybe that's where he's missing. Yeah, he needed a little bit more chest, right? He needs to work out. Again, sorry for the coughing. It's I know it could be kind of annoying. So let's make a new chest piece for him, or new design a new part. And like I was showing you guys most of the time, just bring another sphere in. Move it into place. It's also painted while we're here. And for that, you could either just use a brush with Z, or you could do color fill. Either one. I had problems with color fill in the past, so I sometimes don't even bother with it. I just go straight for this. No, I shouldn't have cookies. Why? Is there something? Did you go to my gun room? Is something wrong, or? Did I make my character as individual parts? Yeah, so right now it's still individual parts that are modifiable, but at the end, like maybe next stream, or if we get further along, we're going to blend this and then combine it all using oh, just pulling my leg. Thanks. Just kind of like what was I talking about? We'll dynamesh it all together without groups so that it all blends together. Yeah, I know. So what happens when I'm sick. I'm not on my game. I'm off my game. So let's see, what can we do about his chest piece? Here's where I want to look at some of the insect anatomy and kind of start. So I'm kind of looking at this guy, right? Like, well, how can I use this to inform me and make this like a cooler thing? But this is not the most fun. If you look at this, it's kind of boring. Yeah, right now I'm keeping symmetrical, but I will break symmetry further along in the design. So I'm looking at that, and I'm also looking at the samurai pieces. You know, a lot of them are like barrels, like kind of pretty basic, and I kind of wanted to stay away from that. Let's see. So maybe here's a little bit more design ideas, but even then, it feels like just like they got a barrel, cut the arms off, and then just shove them inside themselves. You know, like they just put it on top. So I kind of don't want to go with that, but we'll see. Even this one, you see, is just like a big piece, and that I kind of want to make it more insect-like. So we'll see. Let me see what we can do. Like maybe we could add a little bit of that, but let's like maybe that's how it attaches to the it. So if you guys probably have noticed, this stream is about a lot of design stuff, you know. So we're trying to play around with design, how we can make that work, or if it's gonna break our model. But as you can see, I'm not being delicate about any of this stuff. It's so we're implementing some of those ideas like we saw from the samurai. Yeah. So this guy's more of a samurai, you know, kind of inspired. So here I'm just trying to make sure that the little arms have like a way to go, like where they're. You know, like how do we protect the organs and the, I guess, the softer, more delicate pieces, but also have the little arms kind of have a way for them to move around. And sometimes we might have to actually just move the little arms out. Or in another case, we could probably remove them as well if they're not working at all. I think in this case they kind of help. Maybe they just need to be shifted somewhere else. But let's see. See, this is pretty weird. Like, why are they going different directions? But whatever. Let's maybe try using our old way of move things. Yeah, I see that works better. So sometimes you just have to switch tools because it doesn't like one thing or the other. So one thing I noticed from the insect design, it seemed like most of the little arms weren't at the side of the ribs. They were like almost in the center. Let's see if I find the image. Like the joints, you see they actually came from almost the center, where I had them kind of sticking out more from the side. So I'm trying to mimic that a little more because that probably makes more sense if they're right in the front. I'll probably do some renders and do some quick UVs and do some renders in Substance Painter, just as a concept, but probably gonna be 3D printed. You could put a link here to it. You know, like if you put it in Dropbox or Google Drive or something. I think that should work. I think that's how somebody did it last time. So there you go. So I think that might work better. Let's see. So the thing I like about design is that we're not just copying something now, right? Like, oh, I'm doing Iron Man or I'm doing whatever character. The really thing I like is that we're exploring ideas and how some of this stuff will play into the design and what works, what doesn't work. You know, that's like my favorite thing about creating. And sometimes some things work out and sometimes they don't. And you got to be able to roll with the punches and kind of be like, you know what, it's okay if it didn't work. And what have we learned about that? Let's see, what are their bellies like? Oh, their bellies are actually the other way. There's that guy. So we can move this. Let's see. Awesome. The Retopo will work once we blend this stuff in, and I'll either do Zremesh or I'll take it into Maya and do a quick version of that. Yeah, ZBrush just, it's pretty awesome. It lets you create a lot of stuff easily, you know. So I think this looks much better than what we had. What we had was super basic and the shape wasn't quite working. See, to me, this feels like it needs to curve a little more. So let's try something now. Let's well, actually, let's first save. We're gonna try doing the projection brush, but we'll do a little bit of details on the horn and see how that all works out. You guys okay with that? Oh, game ready? Okay. So what are you using? Like Unreal, or what is engine you're using? So let's say we had a little bit of a pattern here, right? RGB's off. Okay. Is this the lower one? Yeah, lows. Let's. So let's say we had some detail like that. It's you only want to do kind of once. Let's actually put a little spine to that. So it feels like it's all coming out of one ridge, right? Let's turn off history. Let's see, where's that file? Undo history's off. Delete undo history. There we go. So one thing you want to do, I think, when using this brush, the extractor brush, is that you want to make sure you don't have any history on, because it's going to try to calculate from the beginning of your creation to the end, you know. So let's switch that tool. And I think you hold shift. Let's try that out. Nope, not shift. I forgot what the shortcut was for that brush. Let's see, is there, that helps. Do you guys remember what tool you have to use for that? What brush? So if I wanted to copy this, S. Can't remember what that tool is. There's a certain combination of a key you have to hold to. It ain't that because that's smooth. G, that's what it is. Yes, that's what it was. So when it changes the icon, you hold G and it changes it to blue, right? So then you scrub on that where you want, and then it makes a brush for you. So now you should be able to use this here. That's funny, it doesn't. Let's try it again. Maybe it was too small because that strip looks pretty tiny. Let's try that. Yeah, so that's kind of what it was. That it has the borders on there, you know. Yeah, the intensity is probably off too, but you kind of see how you can recycle some of those things, and also like I was too close to the border, so it's picking up that edge. See how it's kind of picking up a little bit of that edge. So maybe this is not the best place to do it, but the idea is that you just kind of recycle that over and over. Let's see if that works any better. It looks like they got rid of that little line, but you can kind of see a little dark line, you see? So that's probably going to come across if I start using that. So let's, there we go. Let's undo those guys. Obviously that intensity is way too high, so let's go back to somewhere in the 30s. Go just smooth that part out. Smooth that part out. You start to get similar details. So I think for skin pores and that type of stuff, this would be great. I see. Yeah. Yeah, you see Hannibal's been using it. He's been playing around with this stuff. Let's see, some comments here. Also, you could use the mask to kind of block that out. Okay, let's give that a try. So you're saying like if I only want to switch to painting tool here. So you're saying that if I only want to keep this, soften it, right? And then use the G key. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Let's try that again because I think see, that looks like it did nothing. Oh, you mean like only do that? Let's see. See, the intensity on this thing is not changing. That's kind of interesting whether you mask it or not. But it's all good. Yeah, I know it would be cool if you could just kind of mask where you want, right, and then paint over it. But it's an idea. Obviously, the detail doesn't work here because it looks kind of weird. But we'll cover this more later. The more I experiment. This is the first time using that, so we'll see. Let's see, what can we change about the neck piece? The main thing is to keep moving around your model, because if I just continue working on the face, yeah, I'll start doing all the details, and then it won't. The rest of the model won't get finished. I don't know why his clavicle sticking out here. Let's fix that real quick. Yeah, you could definitely save this brush and you know, all these extractions, which is cool. But here you can see, oh, actually, I guess the masking, no, it wasn't working with the masking. You see, these two look the same. It's only when I made the brush smaller. But yeah, you could definitely save these and then use them at a later date. I think one thing that also matters is if you're looking at it straight instead as opposed to an angle, because if you look at this one here, it looks like we were looking at an angle, and then we looked at it straight, and it's actually capturing the circle, little circle details. So that's something to keep in mind. I know with the history brush has something similar going on, that if you're projecting straight, like if you keep your brush like right here, it's fine. But if you're like projecting the rest of the nose, it's going to project that to the rest of the model. So you have to kind of, like if you have a sphere, keep it in the center of the sphere, not the edges. So, you know, that's something to think about. Yeah, it could also help. Yeah, if you did a flat piece. I know some people are experimenting with doing like everything on planes, which could be cool. You just sculpt a few things and then you recycle those, right? Which is and then you can start making your own library. I think I was just painting with the round brush. All right, let's continue this design. I'm gonna change this. There we go. It's like, where's that coming from? What else can we add for this samurai guy? Let's see. Yeah, you could do it in that as well. UV mode. Yeah, it's all based on the history for the extractor, extractor 2. So that's why I deleted all the history in the beginning, because I didn't want to keep like the pixelation or the Zremesh after, because it'll have all those artifacts of the low polygon cage. That's why it's interesting to kind of play around with that. One thing I'm noticing too about all these guys' masks is that their mask is actually a little larger than their face. So it kind of comes down a little more. So one thing I wanted to change that I thought about yesterday was the pads. I don't like the way they were going. Like they feel like perfectly organic or organic. They feel like a samurai's shoulder pads, and that's cool. We're trying to make a samurai like thing, but I wanted to feel like maybe they're made of more organic matter, you know. So we're gonna play around with adding some different shoulder pads. So this is where we can use that because you see what happened here. I'm moving the front, but it's not moving the back, right? So it's like, okay, cool. I want it to be pretty even, which is not what's happening now, right? So if I undo that, and right now it's pretty even, right? We can start using this new move tool, this guy, move infinity. So now if I move the front, see the back is coming with it, like it's all part of it. And I think that's a pretty cool, useful feature for this tool. What do you guys think? Especially when creating something that's like that's kind of supposed to be the same on both sides. I think that's pretty important, especially for when you're doing this stuff from the side. Let's see. So what is going on with the samurais? Their stuff is usually pretty wide from both sides and pretty flat. Like, look at this one. This one's crazy flat. Like, it's just huge. It's just one giant panel. And I think that's kind of what I want to get away from. Like, it's cool, but it's like one giant piece for most of these guys. See, it's just like one big piece. So I want to kind of maybe add a little bit more breakup. Yeah, it's almost like it's projecting the points, and it's moving them both at the same time instead of just moving like what you're seeing on the screen like this, you know. It's moving them both together, which is pretty cool for some of this stuff, you know. So let's play around with Sadie. So the huge pad is cool, but how can we make that into a cool, like, insect inspiring thing, right? So one thing we can do is start reproducing like the design language, right, that we're using at the top with kind of like his headpiece. So you might be like, what is he talking about? So what I mean by that is how do we take the beetle's kind of shelf of the head and kind of reuse that to like make it another shoulder piece, you know, as opposed to keeping it boring and just like a big, you know, just like half a cylinder with some details, you know, where like this stuff can start blending in more. It's like, and we start looking at it, it has some of the same design elements that are happening with the rest of the model. Brush. Right, so we can start also. So here's where we can use that brush again. Move infinite. Because we're trying to make this thin, so it feels like it's a shallow shell. Like maybe it was like one of the warriors that died and he's carrying like his head, type of thing. At least that's kind of what I'm imagining, you know. If you guys think that's crazy, let me know. Oh, this guy's not supposed to have anything. Make it have slight border. Yeah, you could have some of that. Yeah, that's true. Some of the third eye stuff. So maybe this needs some more curvature. Start playing around with the, like maybe some of the design elements of this could be implemented as well. So maybe these are like sharper. So it's almost like he's carrying a little stag beetle type of in his shoulder and the rest of his armor, you know? You guys digging this designs type of talk and creating, or is this a little boring? I did talk to some of you guys at DesignerCon, and a lot of you guys were digging this. That's a little different. It's not just techniques, or we're talking a lot of kind of how to solve design issues, you know, and also showing that, you know, even as a professional, we all tend to. Yes, I'm sorry. I had to switch to do a Baby Yoda now too, just like everybody else. I just put some horns on this, put some ears on this guy, and put a little robe, and he could be Baby Yoda. I know that's what everybody's doing right now, right, on Instagram and everywhere else. The Baby Yoda. I like it. It's cool. It's really cool series, but I'm not gonna make a Baby Yoda. So many people are doing it, but it's cool. So you see how now we're changing that pad to be a little more streamlined, or a little more to. Have you guys been watching The Mandalorian? Cool. Yeah, for me, it's all about this. I wish you guys were able to kind of talk and chat at the same time too, like instead of just me having to look up, because sometimes I forget to look up. But it's cool to talk about design. So let's mirror that guy over. So now that exposed them a little more, so maybe this needs to be bigger. And then we also have to worry about doing something for the back. Like, how does the armor for the back work? Let's see, this had a sphere. And as you can see, all this stuff starts from a sphere, just like all you guys. It's not like there's anything magical or anything crazy happening. It's all from a sphere. Some of the big projects, it's kind of hard to talk about some of those things, like Avengers and that type of stuff, because it's all, you kind of sign contracts not to talk about that. And that's the reason I'm not showing too much of that type of work here. It's more of this personal work, because you're kind of not allowed to talk about it. So that makes it a little tough for me to kind of expand on that. So here I'm thinking of making this kind of like overalls, or like some kind of vest, you know, so that connects to, somehow there's going to be a little bridge that connects these guys together. Oh, the make good button? Yeah, I'll show you guys that at the end, so you guys just press that and it's done. Oh, the make better button? Yeah, I know. So that's why it's like I'm blocking all that anatomy, but like super rough, because as you can see, a lot of this stuff is going to be kind of covered up by a lot of other stuff, you know? So one thing he's going to have to be, right, pretty flexible. So I feel like some of these things have to be staggered, like they need to have a room for like telescoping. So I see I kind of just cut them in roughly, but now I kind of wanted to like overlap, so that way if he bends forward or bends back, there's like room for flexibility, you know? Let's see if we can do that a different way. push that down, I guess. I only have like 20 minutes left, but I think it's been going pretty good so far. What do you guys think? I know what we can do with that. Instead of pushing it down, we can duplicate it. So maybe it could be a little more multi-layered. Delete hidden, mirror the guy over. So at some point I turned off symmetry, but not a big deal. That's why there was a little gap there. Let's see. So that's not too bad, but this still looks pretty weird to me. I'm almost thinking the little horn piece would be nice if it was actually the other way around. But let's see how that might work, if it works at all. I think that transformation is to, I guess, if you have both the male or the female, and then the human and the cat, and then do a blend shape where like you use the same topology remapped onto the hat, from the cat to the human and human to the cat, and see if that's all working, or if there's parts where like you need more resolution, especially like areas like the nose and the mouth, since they're kind of very different, the shape. Maybe the nose of the human won't map correctly onto the cat. So I would say probably try to do tests as soon as possible. As soon as you have even rough sculpts of each one and the topology that's nice for one, transform it into the other. Because you'll start seeing issues that like, oh, I need more topology here because the cat has more details on the nose than the human does. Or the mouth structure, like you maybe need more loops because the cat's mouth goes further back. Also the mouth, the inside of the mouth. Does that kind of make sense? Because that's kind of what I had to do for like the Huntsman movie, like convert the Charlize Theron to a creature to a guy, and it was all that type of stuff. You know, we had like scans of each one, and then I blend shape in between in the topology and figure out issues where like the guy goes from having she has a nose to no nose. So how do you remove that so you don't get any pinching and that type of stuff? Like how do you adjust the topology? So that way when you blend shape in between all three or between two in your case, then you start seeing what's going to be an issue now so that you can fix it as you're going along. Does that kind of make sense? Let's see, does that look right? One thing I found earlier on that I wanted to share with you guys was when I was looking at research for the spider. There's a lot of different type of spider types. I guess like the way their heads are. So this is kind of cool to see because I kind of wanted to make my spider have fangs. So I kind of the long-jawed orb weaver seems to be like a pretty cool one for that, you know. So he can actually try to eat the guy. So I think I might use some of those elements to kind of push forward on the sculpt. And if you guys aren't trying to figure out what I'm talking about, is for this guy, right? Like I was just kind of sculpting a generic spider, but I noticed that if I start like playing around with these guys, these actually need to be pretty separated. So that I could spread them out and they could become fangs they could grip on. Now, so it's interesting that the eyes are so the same size on that stuff. And that I probably won't keep, you know, like I probably want an eye here, eye there, eye here, and eye there, and have these like other giant eyes. So it's like it must be like super. Okay, great. I hope, yeah. Thanks. Anytime you have any questions, feel free to ask it, whether they're workflow related or just in general. I feel like part of this guy's creature. So you see, it's not all boring. We're gonna try to, I guess, block out in the next 15 minutes. Block out what this guy might look like. You guys cool with that? So here's an example too of when to use that Affinity Brush, right? Because unless you're like moving like this, if we start moving this stuff out, like you're not moving the center part, and that's where I'm using that Infinity Brush. Move this guy. Now if I were to move that, see, that moves the whole thing. Just gotta remember that it's there. Yeah, I tend to work with perspective mostly off, and if I do check it in perspective, I tend to go with let's see, where is it at? Probably 85 lens or 100. You know, if I am checking stuff, we see it doesn't shift that much. Because I had issues where like I thought it was very spherical, like an actual sphere, and then I was working in perspective and I printed something out and it was actually more like an egg shape. So I tend to work with it off because I feel like that's more representative, or even just a flatter lens like 85 or 100. I feel like that works much better. But I do check it with perspective, just like I was showing you guys with like a... Let's see, what else? Let's check out some of that spider reference that I collected yesterday. See, I thought this was a cool spider. Like maybe I'll play around with some of this stuff here. I thought that was a really cool design. Like adding some spikes to it. But first, let's work on these fangs. But I really appreciate you guys joining the stream and checking this stuff out, and giving me your feedback on things, because it's cool. It's fun. It's fun doing this with you guys. Hopefully you guys are having fun too. Oh, thanks. But I want to keep this interesting, so we'll be jumping around, doing some design stuff, some more technical work, and let's see how that goes. So I'm just adding more of a little brow type of feeling, so it feels like the eyes are kind of sitting somewhere, like they're not just kind of shoved in, like you made a little hole and that's it. The other crazy thing is that I'm only at 32 resolution, and look at this density. It's crazy. It's already too much. Like 16. Yeah, that's better, because I'm just blocking this stuff out. It's like it's not about the details right now, and it's easier also to soften or smooth out details if they're becoming too much of a distraction. But yeah, what do you guys think about the idea of this guy he just killed this giant spider guy? I think it's a cool idea, or... Okay, now maybe we need a little more resolution. But even on that guy, it's good to see like the silhouette, right? Like, is he looking like a spider? Is he not looking like a spider? Also, feel free to follow me on Twitch. I'm gonna start doing my own streams probably next week. I'm off for work, so I'll probably be doing some streams during the daytime to get my own channel working. Which we'll probably either continue working on maybe this guy or something else, you know. So if you guys are interested in this type of stuff, feel free to follow me there. I haven't streamed there in a while, so it'll be good to get that started again. So I'm thinking he has another fang there, because why not? Guess the coughing wasn't too terrible. Thought it was gonna be a lot worse. Oh, I had RGB on. Yeah, that's fine. Save this, like where it's going, so brush. Any questions before we leave? I think we have like 5 minutes left. Or any feedback? Not that one. It's starting to look like a cool, crazy spider. What do you guys think? Yes, no, maybe. Let's also paint some material. Oh, cool. Glad you agree. Well, if you guys been watching the stream, you guys would know that sometimes I'm not scared to trash the stuff we do and then kind of repurpose it to something else or start something from scratch. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, and it's okay. That's where this experimenting part is all about, and trying some things, you know. Let's mask the rest of that head. Yeah, I like where the way this is going. Seems to be okay. Looks pretty menacing. Please help you. What do you need help with? You need to make that jaw much stronger. So if he's gonna be eating other insects, he needs to have a strong jaw. Alright guys, I think that's our time for today. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me and having Pixelogic host me here. So I think this is not too bad, right? Let's do a little rendering. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. We'll continue this in 2 weeks from now. So I won't try to do any work at home and just wait for the streaming so you guys can see more of the process. But yeah, we'll continue with our bug creature fight here and making some more awesome stuff in ZBrush. Well, thanks for joining me. You know where you guys were to reach me. MagVFX on Instagram, my website magvfx.com, MagVFX on Twitch. So yeah, thanks for hanging out.